Great. All right. Well, we don't quite have a quorum yet, but we can start to get through several of the presentation items while we wait for one more member of the board to be here to have a quorum.
Can we impersonate someone? We're both alternates. We could fill in for it.
I personally don't mind, but I think our attorneys would like. All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order.
If you could show me.
Jackie, why don't we?
You're not calling it to order.
Okay, well, we're going to start the meeting and, but not call it to official order yet. And so we can actually get to presentations. I don't know how many people are online. Can we tell?
Yes, how many people are online, David?
Don't go right now. Did you bring in one of your beach 15? Excellent.
Does it help
There's
them?
15.
Does it help for everyone to give a quick introduction?
To you.
No. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get going on the first presentation if that individual is available?
Yes, Gloria Roberts is here.
Okay,
Do
great.
you want to read that?
I do. So before Gloria gets started, Gloria Roberts serves Los Angeles and Ventura counties as District 7's acting district director. Gloria's leadership guides the district staff of 2,800 employees to fully align the district's transportation programs and activities with Caltrans guiding principles of safety, equity, climate action, and economic prosperity. Born in Taipei, Taiwan, Gloria immigrated to California in 1980. Values the diverse communities of Los Angeles County, prioritizes multimodal transportation options, and seeks to build partnerships with all community and business stakeholders. Gloria earned a Bachelor's of Science degree from Cornell University and an MBA from University of California at Davis. Yeah.
Wait, Gloria, before you start, Jennifer Lamarque is out here, and so we have a quorum. So why don't you just call the meeting to order? And she back to the other stuff later.
Okay, very good. So I'll go ahead. After we all settle down.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we verified that there is a quorum.
Right.
And can we confirm that we posted the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And I guess let's go back to the agenda after Gloria gives her
Right.
presentation.
Right. Okay.
Gloria, you have the floor. Welcome.
So much, and Executive Director, Jackie Baccarat, and all of your staff and all of you board members for welcoming me here for your wonderful hospitality. It's really great to be back in person and really put faces to names. So Gloria Roberts, I'm the acting district director for Caltrans District 7. And just wanted to give you kind of a slight overview of what we're about, what's going on with Caltrans and what's as it relates to the SD. I will close with an update on the Mrs. Thomas Bridge, and then I'll take any other. So next slide, please. So as mentioned in my bio, we focus on approaching all of our projects and our programs through our foundational pillars of safety, equity, climate action, and economic prosperity. Safety, obviously, it's how we design and build our projects for our roadways. That is provides for safe travel for our users, but also for those that are working on the highway that may build anything on highway system. And safety is also related to equity because we are focusing now on the fact of how our transportation system needs all modes of travel, all types of travelers, including not only drivers, but also cyclists, pedestrians, those that are traversing with wheelchairs and extra, types of mobility. Also bus riders. So really looking at how the transportation network fits and serve the people in the communities. And that, in essence, ties into climate action because at a space now where California has actually grown to become the fourth largest economy in the world. And so we're in a place where there's been a lot of growth, but there's also been a lot of stressors in terms of what that growth has led to in terms of land use. We can't build our way out of congestion where there's more, the population is increasing in Los Angeles County. So how do we mitigate all of that? And climate action, the storms that we had in the first quarter of the calendar year tells us that we need to really take care of restoration, in terms of how we're taking care of the impacts of climate change, but also what it does to our roads and highways and our infrastructure. So really look at how we're investing in terms of really putting forth strategies to preserve and sustain the existing infrastructure while we're still not building new. But building new in terms of really, because facts in the land use, we can't continue to add freeway lanes because we just don't have that room. So what is the solution in terms of how we can invest more in other modes of transportation to pull people out of their cars so that there are travel options, and then investing with on also in our transit system. And that ties into the economic prosperity because we have a complete transportation network. People have choices, and then that gives them their travel options and access to jobs. It brings businesses into places that want to develop, that they have a good an accessible place for being able to. In fact, employers have employees that, you know, they basically are working where they live so that we don't have issues. So that sort of all ties in. But economic prosperity is also where we come in to work with our local government. Because Caltrans a lot of times serves as a pass-through for a lot of federal funding. Right now with the investments in the federal and by bill, the investment in Infrastructure Jobs Act in terms of a lot of investments from the federal level for transportation. So how do we work with all of you in your cities, from your agencies, or your metro, or the transit providers, we look at how we bring the money here in New York. So that's why we're here. We have a whole systems division that really works at, you know, informing and educating on grant opportunities that are there that you need for your cities. So if you have specific questions related to the need that you want, we can certainly talk offline, or you can get in contact and I can let you what you go with that. So next slide, please. Speaking of grants, the governor initiated a Clean California program. Now we're about a year and a half into a 3-year investment of $1.3 billion just to beautify and clean up public spaces. So we've had some beautification projects. If you see the red line, where we have some beautification projects on the 110 and also the 91, and there's also a portion of a local grants. We just had awarded cycle 1 for local cities and local agencies and apply for grant money to beautify their local streets, beautify their local public spaces. We are in the process of accepting grant applications for cycle 2 of the Clean California program. And that deadline is coming up on May 31st. So if your cities are still looking for funding just to do some beautification for your parks or bike trails, whatever it is, please let us know and still to find.
In May 24th?
May 31st.
Oh, we got it.
May 31st.
No.
So
Okay.
not about a week.
Oh, we,
It's tight, but doable. So we can certainly assist with the facilitating getting the applications to you. So next slide. So another initiative that we started is the middle mile broadband network, where Caltrans, working with the California Department of Technology, is looking at really the pandemic really talks. This is related to our equity initiatives in terms of access to broadband. A lot of us take the fact that we have our smartphones and internet access for granted, but there's a lot of communities that do not have reliable access to the internet. And so we have been contracted by the California Department of Technology to work with them to deliver construction of installation of fiber for the minimum mile broadband network. So on the slide, you see where we will have the fiber installed within the SB boundaries, about 14 miles total, and we expect construction to begin in the spring of 2024. So this time next year. Next slide. So update on some planning and grants awards that we're expecting for the Solutions for Congested Corridor program. There's 2 projects within the SBCCOG area. We expect the award to be announced in June of 2023. So we've got the ITC with some Metro 4 station improvements within base stations. There's also a sustainable transportation planning grant that we expect to be awarded in August of 2023. And there, the project is developing in. Another thing that we started to build into our plan is our mobility hubs. So basically, any sort of hubs that serves multiple transportation. So you can think about a park and ride. And so where a park and ride can be used for the connected transit, but can also be a hub for electric vehicle charging, for bike, storage, bike path. And it's just really looking at what makes sense in terms of where people can really places that make sense, where people can have and use other modes of transportation outside of their park. So any sort of transit stops that we can provide for additional amenities, like shelters and the like, that would really engender folks to be able to use other modes of transportation. So that sort of ties in with your LTN in terms of having those different types of modes of travel that can probably be a subset of the mobility hubs. So that's coming up, and that's something that we're building into our next slide. So this and Thomas Bridge, that's replacement. So that's the hot news in terms of we have a planned $700 million replacement for the Vincent Thomas Bridge. It's a 60-year-old bridge where basically the concrete in the deck is just failing. And so I have a couple of our team members on Zoom if anybody has technical questions related to. So the names are Michael Francis, he's a supervising bridge engineer, and then also Asik Vegetarian, he's our principal of design. So they can answer technical questions that you have. But basically, we've done a couple of outreach meetings to introduce the project to let people know that it's coming. The good news is that it's not coming for another 2 years in terms of the start of construction. We are currently in the scoping process where we are accepting comments in terms of considerations as we move forward with this project, what we need to consider to make this project work and be able to complete it. And so we have extended the scoping period to July 10th. The due date initially was early May, and they extended it to May 26th. And based on community feedback, we're giving a full 90 days of scoping to be able to receive formal comments, so that all of the comments come in and as record. And then next slide. So you'll see on the schedule, we're in the scoping period, and then we'll be moving into the full environmental phase. So we'll take the comments, there'll be a summary scoping report at the end of the scoping period once we close it on July 10th, and then the comments will go into the environmental phase where there will be more public meetings, and then we'll be working through in terms of responding to how we develop the project based on the comments that we have received through the scoping period. That being said, though, the public engagement will continue through the life of the project. And because there are so many stakeholders, there's so many variables in terms of really thinking about the business operations for the port, the longshoremen, the community impacts of, if we have the board to be detoured, the various committees, we need to have that local knowledge from the communities to inform us as to what those impacts are. And so we are actually forming a resident or a community advisory committee that can give us that information so that we can draft the best traffic management plan during construction, taking that input in, as we know, community members can tell us which routes, which streets have the heaviest traffic at what times of day. And that'll better inform us as to know, okay, when we're actually doing construction, what does that mean in terms of the best time to have closures or lane reductions? The goal for us is to keep lanes open. So we're not going to close the bridge for like one strong end, because we realize that there's operations, there's the impact of the economy in terms of longshoremen and people that need to get across the bridge. But that's where the resident advisory committee will come in and just basically inform us through the life of the project before we start construction as to all the scenarios that we consider to make this project successful.
I'm sorry. Did you just say that you're planning on keeping lanes open during construction?
We are going to try, certainly for during the working hours that the port is open, to have lanes open. And then really look at having when the port is not active, like on the weekends or evenings, to minimize the closures to those windows.
I see. So the option that we see on the survey that says full closure, really what you're saying is it's full closure during certain hours.
Correct.
Okay, you should probably make that clear because it's not very clear in the survey that I took.
Okay,
It sounds like you're just closing it for 9 months.
right.
I actually voted for that option, by the way.
Yeah, Band-Aid of it. Get it done.
That's exactly,
You want to,
exactly.
keep the lanes open. Obviously, we know that that's a huge economic concern for port operations, for the folks that work at the port and the travel. So, but that's the whole intent of why we ask for comments in the scoping. And so we need to be the comment and the project and settle before construction even.
Okay, very good. And Councilmember Mayor Wilson.
Yeah, I have a lot to say or ask about this. I've been watching this pretty carefully. I have a business located in Wilmington on Pacific Coast Highway, so I'm intimately familiar with the local community there. And whether or not you close it, a complete closure or partial, there's going to be traffic diverted, off the 110, and Peace Beach is the logical west connection at that point. And I know the community of Wilmington is all up in arms about this already.
Yes.
I haven't weighed in on it, but it's a community largely of color, and it's already impacted a lot by trucks.
Yes.
I'm in the trucking business. I know this. I'm very sensitive to it. So, how would you propose to mitigate the number of trucks that would naturally or be diverted, or even by a detour, a required detour? How would you keep the trucks and the additional car traffic off the stage? I mean, Anaheim Street is not a truck route, so you can't put them down at Anaheim. It's kind of just gone challenging. And by the way, I'd like to serve on your community advisory committee if that opportunity is available.
We'll do.
But I get asked these questions because, like I said, I'm in the business. I'm there on the route that's probably going to be designated for it. I don't have any answers for anybody.
I unfortunately don't have that answer, but that's certainly something that we would be exploring, because I know that that's the main concern in terms of traffic that would occur when the bridge is over. So that's something in the town. We'll be looking at that.
Can I get my card to you or something to put that?
We'll give you my information.
Okay, great.
Hey, Gloria, please proceed. Are you done with your?
Okay, so
Oh,
this is the project contact. So as beyond the scoping period, we're still taking formal comment for the scoping period, but that email address is going to be good for the life of the project. So at any time that you have comments related to this promise, that replacement project has the email to use. And so you can certainly, you've got any number of comments, staff, and you can certainly, we will have traffic engineers that will be working with the on looking at the options and looking at. There is some data that we're currently working on to see, to really look at what the performance are. But I know there's real life, data that you can also share, and that would be very helpful.
Do we know what the life of the bridge structure is, remaining life of it is?
The remaining life, maybe Mike or Astrid.
Mike, I'll
Okay.
let you take that one.
Yes. I'm from our construction, not our design division, so I don't have the numbers exactly straight here. But, the bridge is currently 60 years old. The bridge deck itself has worn out its useful lifespan. That's why we need to replace it. And this is the most economical solution at this point. We feel we can get another 50, 60 years out of this bridge potentially by doing this deck replacement.
Thank you.
You've got a hand up.
Thank you. Lori?
Hi, thank you very much. I heard a Caltrans presentation 2 nights ago in Wilmington. And at that point, they said the scoping public comments would end tomorrow. So if you're extending it to July 10th, thank you very much. But the other thing they said, it was under option 1 that no lanes would remain open. So is this a change that you might be able to have during option 1, occasionally have lane open?
Yes, that is one of the things that we're going to try to meet, because we do understand there's a lot of operational issues for the ports and just for this general traffic circulation.
Okay, and have you begun to have this advisory committee?
No, not
And
yet.
who- Not yet. Okay, thank
Not
you.
yet. So if you're interested, please just send your email, send your interest to the email address that was shared in the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm with Supervisor Han's office, and thank you so much for extending the comment period beyond what you had already done. I know the supervisor had really advocated for that. In terms of the committee, how many members will it have, and when do you expect that to be seated?
Very soon, because we know that there is a lot of interest and it's going to take time, as Mayor Wilson had indicated in terms of really sussing out the traffic circulations. So I don't have an exact date, but we should be sure.
And in terms of the size of the committee, do you have a sense of how many members?
Past advisory committees that I've had with we've had up to 20, 25 people. So
Okay.
we want to have a healthy representation.
Yes, and I'm sure our office will be submitting some recommendations, and I would just echo what Mayor Wilson said about the need to have Wilmington stakeholders at the table.
Yeah, and one more comment about local knowledge. You mentioned that you might have, have lanes, all lanes closed during certain operational periods, but for example, the regular day shift in the port, the terminal operations they run certainly 8 to 5. They also run a second shift from 6 to, I think, 3 in the morning. So they're not 24/7, but they're definitely 16, so you can't just say, well, the sun went down and now we can close the lanes. It's not as simple as that.
And that is precisely why we need advisory committees to let us know what the complications are, because we don't. And so we will rely on you to let us know, all the scenarios so that we can figure all of that into how we're going to manage the closures and
Okay, thank you. And just another example, my operation is 24/7. So there's all kinds,
this is 24/7 as well. So
all kinds of, yeah, of course it is.
understand. Yes, thank you.
That works all the time.
24/7.
Is that your presentation?
That is it.
Thank you so much for all of that. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, while we're on this subject though, and page 71 of your agenda is a letter that the COG would be sending with your approval to Caltrans on the Vincent Thomas Bridge at the request of Councilman McCosker, who I guess didn't get it here. And it says, we welcome the opportunity to coordinate and during the development and implementation of the project, recognize that the deck replacement is necessary, but we're very concerned about the traffic impacts and the construction impacts in the communities. It talks about concern about the residential neighborhoods and traffic going through those. And we want to be encouraging comprehensive, it's traffic and air quality mitigation plans. And we want to obviously be kept abreast and on whatever we can do to help with these issues. In addition, heavy truck traffic. We're suggesting maybe they consider it reduce the spillover effect into the community, just one of the options. We're not advocating it, but suggesting it be looked into. And then the project budget should include funding that could be used by the city of Los Angeles to undertake an expanded community outreach and construction impact throughout the communities that will be burdened with additional truck and car volumes. And then we look forward to working with Caltrans. So
Is there a motion to send this letter? Of course.
Is there any other community that wants to be mentioned besides Wilmington expressly that feels impacted by this? If not, I'll move to approve sending it.
I'll second. Okay, move second and reverse roll call.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and go back to the announcements of any changes and
no, there are no announcements.
any comments from the public. Okay, very good. Please, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm Holly Osborne. I'm a retired engineer from Redondo Beach. I have enough of a black and white for everybody, and it's got my address on it, so just pass it down. That way you don't have to take notes on numbers. Now, because I was cheap, I didn't make enough color of these. So this is a map I'm going to talk about. Share and to every third person take one, okay? I'm sorry that I'm cheap, but you've got my email address. Email me and get your own copy. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So this is a cartoon map. Okay. It's not all to scale. All right. We have some people that compare, but the road really is 100 feet wide here. The choo-choo train goes down 50 right to the center, 50 feet on each side. And if you want to get to it coming down Inglewood Avenue, you can turn left on 162nd, but if you're a chicken like me and you don't really know where you're going, well, I do now, you can turn left at the light. I like turning left at lights. And then you're going to drive down Condon. It's so pretty, with lots of trees. I even made one of my clip arts have a swing on it because there really is a swing. This is a de facto park area of a Lawndale, but it doesn't count in their official park area ratio, although they would like it to. If we don't mess it up with more metro trains, okay? Now, notice that it's 100 foot wide here, but down here below 170th Street, it's only 75 foot wide. The reason is because they built houses in the 1980s. That's big and bold here. Yet the draft EIR says, oh, all the houses in Lawndale were built from 1930 to 1970. Very dismissive. Was anybody that's an executive summary. Was anybody looking at a map when they said that? And since the road was purchased by Metro in 1990s, if they were still looking at a 1970s map, maybe they thought they got the whole thing. They didn't, okay? That's why this is so big, and that's why the date, so 1980s is so important. And by the way, there are some houses in the 2000s up on here too, okay? Now, when you get to 170th, you want your tour, this is boy going to school, and he's going to have to cross, oh, they're so nice. He's going to have to cross the metro trains, if they put metro on here, 200 to 300 times a day. You want your kid crossing a track 200 times a day? Probably not. The freight train only comes down twice. All right. So there is an option so that the metro will go underneath, but that's not what was costed. When people tell you how cheaper it is, they don't tell you about the extra cost if you do an option. That's also mentioned in the DEIR. Now, how much time do I have left? What?
30 seconds. How much?
Yes, okay. I could go into a lot about how there's not really enough room to do all the way anyway. But what I really want to stress is how pretty this area is. This is so pretty. And I passed out the sheet, which everybody should have got about the park ratios. Lawndale's is one of the really poorest, 0.72 acres per 1,000. You look down at Manhattan Beach at the PVs and they're 32, 20, and 6. These people in PV, be sympathetic of their little stretch of a trail. Don't begrudge them that. Please don't destroy it. And I'm asking that for everybody. And I don't even live on Lawndale. I live in Redondo, and I got involved in this because I can walk to Lawndale, and I walked down the path, and I thought, this is pretty. It is.
All right, Holly, can you?
All right, I'm done.
Awesome.
It's got my email, so you can get your full color copy
Very much.
and electronic copy of it. Okay.
And thank you so much. Is there any other public comment?
You're gonna get.
We have no
why
other-
this fit thing next
I have no other public comment.
Okay, very good. Next item looks like it's the consent calendar.
Okay, we have on the consent calendar, there are 2 items that Councilman Derringer has asked to be changed. So before the staff has listened to the tape meeting and we agree with that these things happen. So instead of removing it from the consent calendar, let me just say on the minutes on page 8, the motion that approved the separation of the special assessment in the minutes. Mayor, we would add to the end of that, Board Member Derringer stated that she misunderstood the 2-part nature of the motion, was opposed to the dues increase portion, and voted against the motion. So she voted for it, she changed her vote to be against it.
Okay.
And that is what is reflected in the tape. So the second thing that Councilwoman Derringer is suggesting, and this is up to you, is that on the Finance Committee, on the financial policies and procedures, which would be page 31 of your packet. There is the first step on page 2 of the accounts says the executive director will designate an administrative officer. And Councilman Derringer would like to add to assist the treasurer in the performance of his or her duties. We have no objection to adding that. That's in the bylaws anyway, I guess. So with those 2, so if we would recommend that the consent calendar be passed with those 2.
Be approved with those modifications.
Right.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Reverse roll call.
That's not been Bushy.
Yeah.
Any opposition? Any abstentions?
All right, thank you, everyone. I guess we continue on a monthly, what are the next item?
Oh, next item.
Presentation?
No, the next item is the next presentation, which now is the work program.
Okay, got it.
And somebody is going to put that up for me. Okay. I tried to make it a little shorter this time, and a lot of what I'm going to say on the work program will be also the monthly reports. So we should save time at the end.
Okay.
So where are we?
He's multitasking.
I know, it's the requirement of the job, and he does it so well. He does it so well. Okay, so go to the next slide. We just wanted to go through 5 areas of what we consider major successes from our last year. One is leveraging our funding, which we did again this year by 10 times the amount of funds that we get from dues. We expanded the South Bay Fiber Network. We created our turtle logo, which gets, no matter where I take it, it gets nothing but smiles and compliments. And we're working with the city of El Segundo on a pilot, which we're hoping to actually break the ribbon on in July. We sponsored legislation, as you know, that approved the housing trust. And then we created the agency recognition program, which you heard about last month, for sustainable actions. And we're doing a facility equipment inventory of every city in the South Bay. Our revenues, as you can see, are mostly from contracts and grants. Next slide. Okay, this is a focus that I think the year is going to bring to us as we go forward. We're hoteling in the office here. We actually have more staff than we have desks. And so we do have a system where you call in and reserve a desk. We do have a monthly staff meeting. That's a mandatory staff meeting unless you're sick, and it's in person. So we all get together at least once a month. We obviously are always exploring opportunities to remain competitive in the workforce, because we the last bullet, which I will jump down to. I'm going to announce some very unfortunate news. We are losing 4 people in the next 2 months. We're losing, the first one is Steve Lance, who has been our transportation director for many, many years. His last day will be June 7th. And so Steve is leaving. And then we have Ronson has 2 people from his shop that are leaving. He has Lori Jacobs, who has been a mainstay. She's been absolutely fantastic in working on homeless programs and senior programs. And Lori has decided that she wants to do more volunteer work and have a more relaxed life. So she is retiring and we wish her the best, but it's going to be hard for the COG. And then Jillian Stuckey has been an intern that has been fantastic working with Ronson on data and research in the homeless area. And Jillian is a UCLA graduate student, right? And she has found an internship that is, I think, more on point and closer to where she is. And then the 4th person is Gia Horton, who was our receptionist, and she has also left.
We have Sean that's leaving us too.
Oh, and Sean is, yes, Sean Fujioka was a Civic Spark Fellow, and the Civic Spark Fellows we've had are so good that we hired her. And she has decided to go to graduate school at Columbia starting in September. So Sean will be leaving us. So these are probably all good news because the people we hire are good and they're moving on to wonderful things. But hiring is going to be a huge part of the next couple of months. And we also want to mentor our staff so that we can grow our expertise again inside the COG. And then we're also going to be updating policies and procedures. So these is the organizational things we're going to be doing in the next year. Next slide. The program, we're going to focus on these areas and I forgot what the next slide is. So what is the next slide, or am I going to talk?
And continuing major.
Okay, yeah, let's go to the next slide. Okay.
Oh, I forgot to fix that.
Nobody,
Sorry.
yeah. This is not my fault. I said fix it. Okay,
The layout's kind of bad.
A little tiny.
yeah. So I'll read this all to you. Okay, so in the environmental area, which is a huge area of our Council of Governments, we have the Environmental Service Center. And just a little pre-announcement, September is the 20th anniversary of the Environmental Services Center. So you're going to hear a lot more about that.
More work to do.
And energy efficiency, water conservation, we have a lot of work that we do with our partners. And we just parenthetically, let me just say that Monday, Cedric Hicks went to West Basin Municipal Water District on behalf of the COG because they were renewing our contract, and I wasn't there, but I heard they almost fell over themselves saying what a wonderful partnership they have with the COG. It's been really great. And it's been a very, very, how many years, like 10 years or something that we've been working with West Basin. So we have wonderful programs and they're constantly looking at ways we can continue to grow that partnership. In the coming year, we want to enroll Palos Verdes Estates and our school districts into the energy programs and get them. We have some school districts involved. We want to get more school districts involved. We help our cities with the compliant. There's a statewide requirement for cities to comply with their annual building usage. And instead of the cities doing it themselves, we come in and we do it for those cities that are required to do that program. We are going to be completing the greenhouse gas inventories. We've done them for 4 years now. And this is the 5th year. We come in every couple of years. You can use the greenhouse gas inventory to go back to your climate action plan and figure out how you're doing. And so we're going to be updating those and completing those inventories this year. And then we're also assisting our residents in saving water with rebates and devices. And we're looking at new partnerships and programs. We really want to get into net zero energy use, organic waste, and decarbonization. And Kim has developed for us a reputation where the county calls us and says that they would love us to be a part of their programs. So we're hoping for even more programs that we don't know about yet. In transportation, we're working on Measure R&M as we always do with our projects. Our local travel network is going to take a lot of our time this year. We want to go to more cities, build out the local travel network. Micromobility is what the local travel network is. It's promoting the kinds of scooters and bikes and things that you can buy off the shelf, but people don't understand how they can use them safely and have fun while they travel to the grocery store and other places which are their main trips. So we want to talk a lot about that. Shared mobility. We also get money from Metro, I don't know if you know this, to not give out the transponders, but to talk about the express lanes and explain how they work. And then rail development. Obviously, the Green Line is going to be on our agenda. And tonight, I think we're voting on the operations plan. No, we're not voting. on it?
Table the next one.
Oh, see, okay. I thought I had it down here. Okay, so and we will be talking about the operations plan for the Crenshaw line, because that's really important to how the rail will come into the South Bay.
Do, but the action of transportation committee was postponed.
Oh, so it's on the agenda, but the transportation committee asked us to. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that while that's on the agenda tonight, will be at the request of the transportation committee, we'll postpone it. On sustainability and land use, we have our REAP housing studies, and this has been a really interesting, this is money we get from SCAG. And this year we did 4 projects with that money. The first project was at the request of Redondo Beach, the community development director. We did an application form for projects that fall under SB 330, which is, I think, a historic requirement on buildings. And instead of every city doing that form, we did the form. We took it to a lawyer, we got it approved by a lawyer, and we gave it out to cities to use. So that was one thing we did. We also surveyed the community development directors and said, is there something else that we could do for you like that? And they haven't come back with anything, but something we can do with our regional planner and the assessment that you pay. Second project that we did, which you're going to hear about in probably August, is our ADU project. We had, I should go to where I can see, we had, I think it was 8 cities involved in the ADU project. They self-selected, and that project 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that project is completed almost. The deliverables are coming out, and what it did is we talked to ADU owners and people that lived in ADUs. We did a survey, find out who lives in these ADUs. Are they really used for what their intended purposes are? And right now, the final step is actually to look at the infrastructure and how the infrastructure is handling the ADUs coming on. The board presentation will be in in August. And it will probably be with the third project. Third project has commercial redevelopment into housing. And for that project, we have 6 cities involved. And those 6 cities, we have an incredible team that has used their expertise. It's at Studio 111 in Cosmount. And they've been using their expertise to look at redevelopment parcels that have been identified by cities that they have done analysis on to find out what would it take to turn those into housing. Would that make, how would it work? How would it pencil out? And they've done developer outreach, and that's still in progress. You'll be hearing the final part of that as well. Today, we had a session of our 4th REAP project, our housing education forums. The session today was on climate just communities. And on June 22nd, there'll be a session on land use and transportation. And we hope you'll attend, but they're all up on our YouTube channel. So those are the 4 REAP projects that we're completing. But in the coming year, we have 4 new REAP projects. 2 are definite, 2 are speculative. The 2 first REAP projects that are definite, we're going to be applying to SCAG, and this is money that we should get because it's non-competitive. It's just money that's dedicated to our subregion to actually put the flesh on the bones of the housing trust. We have never really gone to you and said, do you want to join the housing trust? And you have said to us rightly, what does it look like? What's it going to do? Who's on the board? What's the bylaws say? And so we're going to hire a consultant, which is what Gateway COG did, to do all of that, to come up with how it would look, what it can do, talk to developers in the South Bay, what's the potential, what's the best way to raise money, how would you raise money? And then we'll come to cities and we'll say, okay, this is what it can look like. You obviously can make any changes, but at least we'll have something a talking document. I should say the city managers are also looking at it right now. They're trying to flesh out a JPA, but this consultant would work on the bylaws and all of the nitty gritty. And so that's the first REAP project, and that we're using the money for that. Second REAP project has to do with taking the commercial redevelopment, which was so successful, adding more cities and doing a deeper dive. And then SCAG also has something called other to housing. And it's a tool that was created that I think helps with the design of how you would make commercial housing. So we're going to be helping cities learn that tool because it requires a little training. So that's the two REAP projects that we pretty much know we're getting. Then it turns out that Metro is getting money from SCAG to do more REAP projects, these regional early action projects for housing. And we've applied to two of those. One of them has to do with, this is a real test of my imagination here, mobility hubs. And just as I could remember, just as Gloria mentioned, we are very, very interested in mobility hubs. We want to make our neighborhood centers that we're talking about digital centers with mobility hubs. And so we've applied to Metro for SCAG money, and that is competitive money. So we don't know if we're going to get it, but it would be for mobility hubs to advance. The idea is if you're solving a transportation problem, then you're solving a housing problem because you make it lower cost to live and those kinds of things. Second project, which I think is a dynamite project, is parking. Everybody talks about parking as being adding to the cost of housing. We want to look at parking in South Bay. We want to look at micromobility parking. If you use our local travel network, you probably can get 4 vehicles in 1 parking space. And so how can we look at parking as a housing strategy? And that's our second project. And we'll be hearing about those, I think, sometime in this summer. They have to go through Metro, then they have to go through SCAG. So those are our 4 REAP projects. And then I'll talk about this just in a minute. And then we're also looking for right now for sites for a neighborhood center. And interestingly enough, Anderson Park in Wilmington is Janice Hahn's district. Right? Yes, in San Pedro. And we've looked at that building as a potential really incredible neighborhood center. It's a 2-story building and the second story is not being used. And if there's a way we can figure out how to, I mean, it's dynamite. And so we really want to work with your office and Councilman McCosker's office on that one. And you'll hear more about that. Okay, homeless. Ronson's here, and he'll talk a little bit more later. But we work with our cities. We had a great meeting on May 10th with all of our cities to talk about how we can come together and really communicate best practices face to face. We're going to do that quarterly now with as apart from the homeless task force, we're going to have a city staff meeting quarterly. And we're working on pallet shelter projects. Our latest is Hawthorne, congratulations. And then Project Home Key, working with landlords and very much mental health, because that's a very big part of what's going on. The other part of what's going on is workforce. There's not enough workforce in this field. And that's been a real problem. And Ronson can follow up on that later. And then with our seniors program, it's really an incredible group. Britt is our chair. And I think people really love coming to that meeting. It's chock full of information on things for seniors. And one of the highlights this year for me was the opera singer that came and talked about how she goes to homes for seniors and really uplifts their lives. So we bring in really great resources. Now, for those of you that are eyesight challenged, the South Bay Fiber Network, we're continuing to build that out. We want to work with Caltrans, obviously, on their middle mile network. We're going to a lot of meetings on digital equity, and we have a grant from the California Public Utilities Commission to work on creating more extensions to our network for micro businesses and getting into the communities, mostly in disadvantaged communities, but that grant includes a market assessment and a needs assessment that we hope will answer some questions for the whole South Bay. This is a really important grant for us because California was very slow in letting these grants out. And so what's happening is that within like a month or two, we're going to get another opportunity for a grant that will actually build the network. This one is to design the network, and the second grant is to build the network, and yet they just gave us this grant. So we're working really hard right now to figure out how we're going to apply for that second grant, which could come as early as late June. So it was very bad timing, but at least the whole state's in the same boat. And there's a lot going on with digital equity and that we're involved in. Outreach, we could still go to over 100 events a year. in the community. We bring all of these messages there. We could not do it without our volunteers. And we have one of our volunteers here today that helped you with your dinner. Aaron. And we're always looking for more volunteers, and we could not do what we do without our volunteers. And then last, and it shouldn't be so little, is advocacy, because this whole thing doesn't work unless we support.
It's a design choice.
Yes, unless we support all of these programs at the state, in the county, and everywhere else. And we also, you should know this, that when your city has a grant or something, they send me a letter and they say, can you send a letter of support? And if it's regional, if it isn't something that, like, one city's not attacking the other, if it's a regional issue, we will send a letter of support. We just do that. For city managers know to send me that. So we're on, obviously, and always supporting our cities and our own programs with advocacy. Next slide. The housing trust, I guess I already did this. We're going to be working with cities to determine if you want to join. We're establishing the trust. We're going to have to create a board of directors. And then the last bullet, I hope you all know about, I don't know if you looked at that, La Casa, right? La Casa is the new acronym for the Regional Housing Trust that was passed last year it was a Sidney Comlager bill. We all watched it and wondered what it was. And our representative on that new board is, I can see him from Beverly Hills, John Marsh from Beverly Hills. And so at some point, I think we should probably invite him to come and talk, but I think the first meeting was just this month, May 17th.
It was, yes.
Yeah, so it's just forming, and we don't, and this particular agency, once it's formed, has no money right now. It's my understanding that they will be probably going to the ballot in November of 2024 with some mechanism which may or may not be combined with the renewal of Measure H. And in the legislation, the West Side, which is what we are, we share this seat with the West Side COG. We get 7.4% or something of any revenues collected. We could get more, but we get by automatic, we get 7.4%. So who knows what that is, and who knows if any of this passes, but that's some money that would be seed money for our trust. Next slide. Funding opportunities. I don't know, we crossed off solar there. We always are looking for grants. There's a lot of grants going on now. We don't make a lot of money by renting this room, but we do rent this room out for community groups. We always partner. As I said, the county is contacting us for partnerships. And I understand that there is a movement for local return on certain programs like a new Measure H. We don't get a lot of money from the homeless compared to how much money is collected. So there is I think there are some cities that are trying to advocate for some kind of local return. Next slide. Okay, these are the groups we work with, and we've got some are more active than others. Some are meet as needed. Our economic development directors meet as needed, but our infrastructure working group meets monthly. So it's all very, very different. Next slide. Our partners, we couldn't do this also without our partners. And coming up next year, we're going to add we're going to add the gas company to that, right?
They're in a contract now.
Or they're a contractor, but they used to be a partner, now they're a contractor. Okay. So
We don't have continued commitment of funding beyond like a year.
right, so we can't add them as a partner. Okay, and then the next slide is any questions you might have. And that's the program.
Any question? Yes, sir.
Did I understand you correctly that this is the last board meeting before Steve Lance retires?
Yes, it is.
Can I just say based on my prior 8 years service with elected official with the COG as mayor, that Steve was particularly helpful to me starting in 2011, having led projects, co-led projects like the Spolvita Bridge project, the road diet in Vista Del Mar. Steve was particularly helpful. I just wanted to say thank you, I guess, on behalf of the region, not just my own city.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Just one comment on for the housing trust consultant. We've used Kathy Head in our city, Redondo Beach. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but she's super about our inclusionary housing ordinance. But she's super knowledgeable on housing and affordable housing and all that.
Great.
So she could be one to consider.
David, can you write that down? Kathy Head
Yeah.
Kathy
in Redondo.
Head.
Ed,
Yeah, she's not in Redondo, but she's.
Oh,
a
yeah.
consultant too.
Okay, so we can find out from Redondo how to contact her. Thank you very much. And even if, I mean, we're gonna have a consultant and we're gonna interview developers, so that would be one way or the other, we should contact her. Yeah, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, very good. Thank you, Jackie. Next item.
Item is the budget. All right. And who's doing the budget? Laura's doing it. Laura is doing the budget.
Hi, Laura.
Laura, do you want me to share it?
I'll share it. So I have it up here. Sorry, we're just getting the door so we can avoid background noise. Thank you. All right. You can see it okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So we just have, we start off with a summary, just comparing our adopted 22-23 year to mid-year to now what we are proposing for fiscal year 23-24. And here's just a summary to notate that our reserve is fully funded, which was achieved June 2022, and it will be re-reviewed for fiscal year 24-25. And what Jackie mentioned earlier about the SCAG REAP, two options that are competitive, they're both listed here with their amounts that we're anticipating to get, but it is a competitive option. And also the Caltrans grant that we're anticipating as well. Going to just a summary of everything for revenue, we continue to be heavily reliant on grants and contracts. So you'll see that gray area, that is 88% grants and contracts from our revenue. The 1% is our special assessment fee, 7% is our dues, and then 4% is other general fund revenues. And then equivalent almost is expenditures, where we have 26% of that being composed by salaries and benefits. The majority of it, 53% for professional and contractual services to implement the contracts and the grants. And then last but not least, 21% for just supplies and services to run everything. And then now we just have kind of the most noteworthy comments from the narrative that we had already shared. And you will see that for expenditures and revenues, it's almost equal. So 29.69% increase. And then for revenue is 26.04. And then we'll go into a breakdown of that. So the most noteworthy mentions are local solutions funding for homeless services. And then the amount is listed here for that. We didn't have a percentage because it is new funding, so there's nothing to compare to mid-year 22-23. Followed by that, we have SoCal Gas Company, new grant funding. So that's also new. So we just listed the amount. It is actually 100,000, but we are also recognizing now the amount that goes into the full fiscal year, because previously for mid-year, we had only recognized the revenue that will be under the mid-year, so 22-23. But now we're recognizing the full amount. So we added 83,333. Followed by that is what Jackie mentioned earlier with Cedric going to meet with West Basin. That was really great. We now have a better contract. We went from 159,000 to 170. So that's an additional funding that's listed here, 6.93% more. And then we're also going to have now active REAP 2.0 funding. So that'll add an increase to just overall REAP funding at 12.4%. And the actual amount is listed here as well. And then lastly, we have local agency technical assistance funding, or the LOTA grant. And that is now, we're recognizing the full amount that now that we've actually acquired a consultant, and the amount is listed here as well. And as mentioned, equivalent enough, we have expenditures increasing at 29.69%. And the noteworthy mentions here, we have salaries and benefits increasing at 37.18%. And the large contributors to that, we have the JBNA contractors becoming SBCCOG employees. So we shifted that, and we'll look at that in the contractors page in the budget. You'll see that it's reduced on one account, which is 6210 management, and it's increased under contractual services 6210. And then we have also our senior program manager that we now recognize at 10 months of employment versus 4 months at mid-year. And then we have a new full-time staff housing navigator for homeless services that was just added, and we only recognize that person at 10 months of employment. For professional and contractual services, we have an increase of 33.69%. And most of those are just changes to reflect services previously performed under the JBNA contract. Homeless service contractors, especially to implement the new funding from local solutions. And then SCAG and REAP contractors for REAP 2.0, and those will be additional new contractors. We also added one additional Civic Spark Fellows. That's like Sean mentioned, was mentioned previously. Very great quality people that we get through there that have been hired. So it'd be really great to add one more. And then Lauder Grant Consultant now is recognized at the full amount for the contract that's now finalized. We had previously listed it at just the staffing, not the contractor that will be a significant part of this funding. In supplies and services, we just listed some increases for membership dues. Now that we're mostly in person, there are a lot of conferences. So then we have more of that, meetings and conferences, software and hardware for additional staffing. And then we also have had a notice from our insurance company for a 14% increase for liability insurance. And then lastly, we have city reimbursements, which is basically our coordination with all of the cities to implement the homeless services work. I think that's pretty much it. Sorry if I went too fast, but we're definitely open for questions, and we can go back to the detailed packet that was previously shared too, if needed.
Any questions? Yes.
What is our reserve policy? How much are we required to keep in reserves?
So the current reserve policy looked at what the close down would have been at the time that they established the policy, and that number was the 405,000. And then we fully funded that. So then what we need to do in that policy, we said we would reevaluate it. Oh, sorry, I said we would reevaluate it. And we need to do that every, I think it's 5 years, and we need to reevaluate that next year, and then we'll see if we need to make a change to it. But right now, you're fully funded for your reserve.
Is there a certain percentage of operating expenses that we're required to keep a reserve?
What we did is we looked at what close down would be. So if we had to, if we had to, get out of the rent, like all of that kind of stuff at that moment in time. Yeah. So it's not a percentage. Yeah.
Any other questions?
And let me just say, tonight it's really a discussion night. We adopt the budget in June, so if you have any thoughts or look at it and have some things you want to say, now is the time to say them, and we will bring this back on the consent calendar probably in June. But it's not here for your adoption tonight.
You always have the questions on the budget?
For this item tonight, yes.
Okay, I was just trying to get an idea. There was a general reference to the increase from going from contractors to employees. But there, I had thought that there was supposed to be something after the COG had discussed this with legal counsel Michael Jenkins, that there would be a chart set for it. What people were making and then what they could be doing as employees. I know back in the day, I know there's some disagreement with this, but I did distinctly hear that there would be an attempt made to make that seamless so that it wouldn't be necessarily an additional cost. But the information of where it's going, because we did this kind of in part where there was items in terms of asking, hey, we should change the titles, and then all of a sudden, well, here's the range we should have, and then we ended up putting people in the titles, and we never really got something that set it forth when we were in the finance committee. So I understood that we were waiting for seeing whether that lawsuit that involved Uber was going to resolve. But in talking to Mike Jenkins, apparently that lawsuit had nothing to do with us. We were required to go from contractors to employees, irrespective of what was going on in that lawsuit. So it just, it's not really clear. It's just saying there's more money, but it really doesn't quantify like where it went and how much was per line item and per employee. Of course, if we're contractors are now employees, we got raises, just so we can see where all that is going in terms of personnel.
Okay. Well, we do have a closed session item tonight in regards to the contract for that conversion. So that will be discussed with the full board at the conclusion of the regular meeting. We did talk about having those salary charts, but in regards to, well, maybe Jackie, you could tell us in regards to the conversion. I think the general consensus from our board was that we need to comply with AB 5 and that we can no longer have our contract positions anymore. We need to convert them. So I think that was the general consensus of our board. We are talking about that contract in closed session tonight. And you want to add any?
Yeah, well, first of all, you have to know that your contractors are going kicking and screaming into this. This is your decision, not ours. And second of all, in the budget, you'll see that what we did was, in preparation for this, we did a salary survey and created ranges, which is what B is referring to. And so we created ranges for each of the positions, and the salaries that we're proposing are within those ranges. And the ranges were competitive based on looking at similar cities and similar organizations. So the cost of doing this fell out of that. Looking, setting competitive salaries. Did you want to say anything, Tim?
I was just gonna say, and they're included, the positions with the full ranges are included in your document on page 79. These are the actual positions, and you are, Jackie functions as the executive director, I function as the deputy executive director. So those are positions that you can't be contractors, unfortunately, you have to have those positions, and so that's what that is. I don't know if there's more.
Yeah,
We did give you a breakdown in your finance committee. We had the breakdown that showed what the positions were with the amounts and what the costs were and why it was the way it was.
Right. And I think unfortunately, nobody really wanted this, but unfortunately, we realized we've got to comply with state law. And so that's where we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, and I understand that. I'm totally into complying with state law and not advocating to the contrary. But I do know that sometimes it's helpful to get some of the information out of the background of how you got there. I know that we're selecting certain cities and entities that can selected to put into the mix from which there was the ranges were determined, but that was not a finance committee function or review.
Oh, so you're talking about a compensation step.
Or determining whether what's fair for a COG such as ours and who you compare it with. That was something that we've done.
We voted on this item. And I would say that if we're going to talk about compensation and salaries, we should wait for closed session to do that. Because and our attorney will be participating in. I don't know if you or Pat will be, probably Pat will be participating in the closed session since he's a member, but he could probably take that, or we could just bring the question to him. But what would specifically the question be? Would you like a what are you asking for?
So all I'm saying is that I think it would be good from a transparency point of view to have all of the data so that all the members, if they wish to, some may not want to look into that, but if they want to have it, it would be available as to where this came from, and it's all available as opposed to, well, how did you get that and how did you get this? And it'd be a board decision to ratify that at once rather than, that's all. I know it's already been done, but it's just.
Understood. Is that the sort of information that could be made available during the closed session?
You have that, well, you had, do you have a list of who?
So we
of the
looked at,
yeah,
so I can give you a summary. So what we did is we started because the state law changed that established minimum wage. Minimum wage affects salary staff. So salary staff has to make double that of at the lowest level of minimum wage. And so as a result of that, we had to look at all of our salaries. And I reached out to several cities, and I think we were kind of ahead of the game. A lot of people hadn't even looked at what that was going to mean to them. So we established the baseline as that minimum salary range for exempt employees, right? And then from there, we looked at other COGs, and we looked at similar sort of size cities, right? Because a COG does a lot of different things, right? If you think about city government, we work a lot of different programs, transportation, homeless services, senior services. We have some of the same functions. We have budget and HR and all of those other kinds of things. So what we ended up doing, I think it was actually Rolling Hills Estates that we looked at. And so these ranges are actually probably, they're definitely less than San Gabriel Valley COG, which, and then they're probably just under what you see for like Rolling Hills Estate. So it seemed like it was that, and when I looked, and what I had to do actually, is you have to be very careful about what positions are. So I looked at reading the descriptions of the job, because sometimes the names are not reflective of the work, and match the positions with the actual work that's being done by the organization. So it was, and I've done this kind of work before for the LA County. So I was able to look at everything and put it together. And so that's what you had before you several months ago, last year,
I remember that.
maybe this time last year.
We
Yeah.
did have that discussion.
And we talked about it, and I kind of went through it.
Right, exactly. Okay. Any other questions? All right, very good. Next item.
Okay, next item is the nominating committee, and as chair, do you want to give the nominating committee report?
Sure. Okay, so the next item that we have on the agenda is the nominating committee and recommendations for the 2023-2024 COG officers. And on the committee with me was, of course, Mayor Drew Boyles, council member, or Mayor Britt Huff, sorry, and Olivia Valentine, who is past president. And during that time, we reached out to a few of the current board members. And in that group, and should I go ahead and say who it was? Yeah. So we reached out, of course, to council member Suarez. We reached out to council member Pimentel and El Segundo, council member or Mayor Pro Tem Uphoff in Lomita. And we also reached out to council member Tim McCosker in the CD 15 to see if they had an interest to take the second vice chair position, with the current chair recommendation being our current vice chair, which is Cedric Hicks, a council member in Carson. And then our second vice chair currently is council member Rodney Tanaka, who we would recommend to move to first vice chair. We interviewed Bernadette, Chris, and Bill, and Tim's office, they didn't show interest. I think that they had a time issue. So, but we did certainly want to include CD in that process. And we had actually great interviews with all three candidates. And quite frankly, this is the first time I've been part of a nominating committee like this. I know this is the way in which the South Bay City Council government does their work. That's how probably everyone that's become president got kind of into that chain of starting off in second, first, and chair. And the other three that were with me, I think, had participated. I know Britt certainly has been a part of that process. And as you can imagine, when you interview your colleagues and you like all your colleagues and you know they're all well qualified to take that position, it's a very difficult choice. And so it ultimately came down to recommending a council member from El Segundo. He's actually the Mayor Pro Tem, Chris Pimentel. And the reason that he just slightly separated himself from certainly Councilmember Suarez, who I certainly would want to see in this position as well, and also Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Uphoff, is that Chris has been a part of the Transportation Committee, which, as you know, has been a very difficult committee over this year. And we believe that the Transportation Committee is going to be probably one of the hardest committees this upcoming year. So him moving in that position made sense. But I also, in talking with Councilmember Suarez, she is, of course, still interested in that. I told her that this is a recommendation from our committee. This is not a vote from the committee. It's just a recommendation to the group. And so she asked if she could present any case in regards to the full board. I said, that's not up to me. It's fully up to her. Her and I are equal board members when it comes to voting and decisions. So I don't know what she came tonight, but I think she might consider that. And I don't know if Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel is with us. He might not be.
So the action here is to, the nominating committee usually gives the report and puts it on the floor, and then the nominations are open.
That's right. So at this point, I would say, let's go ahead and open the nominations.
I did want to say something. For me, I sat as an alternate on this organization.
Bernadette, can you stand up?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to.
It is a little bit. Okay, I'll try and project. So I've sat on this organization since 2016 as the alternate. And then in 2018 became the delegate. I didn't try to make a move any sooner because for me, this organization, I think what we prided ourselves on is making sure that each city gets their representation. And so in 2016, we did have my predecessor, Jim Osborne, was chair. So I learned a lot and got to see, and I think one of the most important things to me was making sure that each city gets their voice, their representation. And I think I remember a time when Carson was not showing up. And so it was very important that I think it's traditional that we rotated around and make sure that cities feel that it's a fair process. And I just think it would, for me personally, I think it's, I think we have such a diverse region and I would be so honored to represent that diversity. And so I still very much am interested. I know all of the applicants or interested parties would be a great fit. However, I feel strongly about, serving on this committee. I think I've done my time, observed, and so I'm not going to nominate myself, but I would hope that someone in this group would vote same. And so, whatever the results are, I've always believed strongly in this organization and I'll continue to serve, but I did want to say a few words about that.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Councilmember Bud.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Bernadette Suarez. The reasons are multifold. Besides having observed her, I haven't been super active here. I've been the alternate for the last year, but having observed her leadership for a city has made me want to see her in a leadership position. She's also stood up to her word. In addition, I love Chris Pimentel. I actually know him as a council member more than many of the people in the room because we do a lot of stuff, especially at the Space Center and the like together. But also going to just had representation as the chair, prior to Councilmember Crushing with Mayor Drew Boyles. And I want to call the elephant in the room. Enough of the white males. So let's get this organization to lead with the same diversity that we see in our communities, and let's lead from ahead. I support Councilmember.
Second the motion.
But tonight is not the election. The idea is to place the names in nomination. And so nominating committee's name is a nomination, and this name is a nomination, and any other name.
So we would add her name to the nomination.
Sure. All right.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to add her name to the nomination. Do we need to take a vote?
I don't,
Okay, so we'll go ahead and add.
you can ask if there's any others.
Is there any others that would like to be added to the list? Or make, no, we don't vote tonight.
So it's next month.
That's correct.
Is there not a vote to put your name on?
I don't believe we need to do that. I think that if everyone here is capable of being on the board, I asked that question too. For next month.
Just doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I asked the question. Yeah, it was a good question. Yes. Okay.
No one can spend more than $5,000 for this race.
I'm a bit
I just want to say I've been doing this for many, many years. And one of my dreams has been that people would want this job. So this is fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for that discussion. It's great. Bernadette, thank you for throwing your hat in the ring. We appreciate that.
trust. Faith.
All right, very good. Next item.
Next item is Environmental Services Center. Kim, do you have any?
Goodness. In addition to what Jackie was talking about earlier in the work program, I did attend the AQMD's Air Quality Management Plan meeting today, and they are looking at the next cycle for updating that plan, and specifically the PM 2.5, which is the particulate matter and speaks to trucking, for example, is there was a representative from the trucking industry there today. The committee they laid out the schedule. They gave us information that we have not met the national standard, which we already knew. But what's interesting, we've been making really good progress in coming down each year. But the federal government is looking at actually lowering even more. They're at 12 right now, and they're talking about lowering it to 9, and we're like right at 15. So if that happens, we really have to be looking more at what we're doing. And so, and this affects trucks, like I said, but also, bird, has to do with labor. And, they're gonna be looking at all kinds of different regulations. They have to implement the best available strategy to them because of the severity of our area. So, that happened today, and we'll be following it, and I attend that meeting. It's a technical advisory committee. Other than that, the team is doing fantastic. You can see they're out in the field. We're working with the county on potential grants. We're looking at a decarbonization for cities that might be interested in that. I know we have a couple of cities that are interested in that, working with LA County, applying for that. Of course, starting our work with the gas company. So any questions on?
Any questions? Okay, looks like it was so complete, no questions. Good job. Thank you for everything you do. Next item.
Next is the transportation reports. And before I forget this, doesn't really fit anywhere on the agenda, but if you remember, when we had these opportunity to serve a while ago, we had several candidates that wanted to be on SCAG policy committees. And I called SCAG and I said, we have really good people that want to be on SCAG policy committees. And we were able to get a presidential appointment to the transportation committee for Bridget Lewis from Torrance. She's a new council member for Torrance, and she works at the Port of Los Angeles. So she's going to be a really great member of the SCAG committee. And now you'll see her name on that committee on our agenda, but we were able to do that.
Awesome.
So next, Steve Lance is going to report his last report.
We already missed you. We already missed you, Steve.
Oh, thank you. So today the Metro Board met and adopted a $9 billion budget for the fiscal year 24. It's staggering in its complexity. So I'm going to go through a couple of key points. They're adding staff. They have an increase of 3.5%, merit increase plus a cost of living adjustment of 2.5% on July 1st. They'll also have a where'd it go? Here it comes. There it is. They've approved operating improvements, including focusing on their next gen reorganization of their service, cleaning, reimagining public safety, and various low-income fare programs. The transit service is going to stay at 8.9 million hours of service. And they're about 10% below pre-pandemic levels. So they've come back significantly in the amount of service and the amount of ridership that they're going to expect to carry. The other thing that they're going to do, a weird little technical thing for wonks like me, when you build a rail line in the middle of a freeway, instead of using the steel spikes, you use something called clips or pandrel clips. Those clips attach the rail to the cement, and they have to go through every 20, 30 years and replace them. So this coming year, it's time for the Green Line to get fastener replacements, which means that it will be out of service from time to time in different segments as they do that rehabilitation. Let me make sure there's, I'm just cruising through the agenda here. So give me half a second. Oh, the other thing that happened was that you recall that we unanimously approved using the SEP program for the Inglewood Transit Connector. Today, the Metro Board also approved that use for the reserve for the Transit Connector. So that, and Board Member Butts specifically thanked the COG for our unanimous support. So that was appreciated. And he gave a whole background on how well that program is coming.
Steve,
I think that's it. Yeah.
Steve, did they say anything about the $22 million?
Yes, it was $108 million for the SEP. Let me start over. The SEP is $130 million total. And we dedicated 108 to the ITC and $22 million to help fund the shortfall on the Crenshaw LAX project. The problem is LA City has not put in their share yet, so we've requested that money to be returned to us. But the money was not reprogrammed today. It's still officially at Metro programmed for that cost sharing on the cost increase on the Crenshaw LAX project.
Yeah, I've been told that, I actually met with Stephanie Wiggins, who's the CEO of Metro, and she said they're not going to return the money to us. They're going to make another foray at LA City and see if they can get them to step up to the plate. But at this point, they're not talking about returning the money to us.
Thank you.
We couldn't hear. Jackie, we missed that. It's the bend is.
I'm so sorry. We were told it's going off at 6 o'clock, so I don't even know why it's on. Okay, so what I said was that the $22 million that we asked Metro to return to us, they're not going to return because they want to ask LA City to come to the table and make up for their commitment. We asked our 22 million was contingent on LA City coming to the table. LA City has said they will not pay their portion. And what I was told is they are going to go back to LA City and try to get them to pay their portion before they return it to us.
Recall that we had not programmed those funds until 2043.
Right.
And so we have a couple of years for them to try and get the LA to provide their share.
And Steve, the other question I had from your notes was, did Mayor Butts say that they're using city projects to build? See, our backstop wasn't enough for Inglewood. They needed like 180 million or something. And we could only give them 100 million. So I read something.
What he said today was that in addition to the capital project, to building the project, they're also committing $7 million a month from Inglewood city funds for the operation subsidy that's going to be required.
Oh, I thought you said.
I asked him if the operations cost has been estimated yet, and he said no. But the city council has committed $7 million a year out of their own coffers for operational subsidies.
But it said something about backstop. They didn't say anything about the backstop.
They didn't change the money that would be used for the backstop.
Okay.
So it was in addition to that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Steve. Okay. Local travel network, Jackie?
I think I've given all the reports
Okay.
on that.
Got it. And then same with the REAP?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the next one would be Ronson. I think
Okay.
there's a couple things to say.
Very good. Ronson. Yes.
I don't know that we can skip you. I think you're the last one.
Well, senior services or SPA 8, we don't have either.
Yeah, that's Ronson.
Oh, that's all
Well,
Ronson.
why doesn't, Rick, do you want to give a report on senior services? Did you want to give a report on the senior services committee?
Oh, yes, okay, since I'm here. Let's see, we've had,
I think they're gonna have trouble hearing. Why don't you just stand up?
Can't imagine, you know, my. Okay. This is the highlights, because, you know, we have a, number of speakers each time. Can you hear me yet?
Yes.
Jackie, that way.
Yeah, there we go.
Now you go.
Just for you to know, they told us in June they're fixing this stuff, so
So hopefully it'll be
hopefully.
better.
Might be nice to just have some
AC?
microphones. Didn't we borrow those ones from the previous office? We all.
We have microphones.
Oh, yeah. Your turn.
Highlights that I wanted to know that, we had, Lopez Paz from the supervisor Khan's office. She's in charge of the LA Bound program, and I don't know if you remember that a number of years ago. They launched this lifesaver program with the bracelets they made available for people with dementia. Because I don't know if you remember that Nancy Polakis incident where she wandered away at the museum. You know, you found them years later. You know, they started with 30 bracelets and they now have 1,080. So it's been a really fabulous project of trying to help keep track of people who have dementia and wander away and be able to track them. And the other highlight, we also had, Alicia Chang from the, Regional Health Office, and she was emphasizing the fact that the bivalent boosters, which are available now for anybody who's, I should say anybody, but, older adults, people who have compromised immunity, and that, they're available after like 4 to 6 months after the previous one, and how important it is to encourage people in that category to get that. So, I think oh, and then Scott Houston from the West Basin has been appointed by Supervisor Howard Mitchell to the LA County Commission for Older Adults, so he can spoke to adults. So, fabulous.
Thank you, Brett.
Good up there too for everyone to see. And also Wally presented on, he's seeking feedback for a digital equity plan that we're working on for seniors. And so that was one of the last. For the homelessness update, we had a meeting on May 10th, as Jackie mentioned, with your staff, your city staff responsible for the homelessness response. We wanted to talk about our local solutions on programming to see if we're missing anything. And it was identified that our case managers could really use a document specialist. So someone that can get birth certificates, California IDs, things like that. And it'd be great if this person can also transport them to the DMV and help them get that. And so, we're going to add that to the program. We also talked about the COG's role as a direct service provider. We're the only COG in the region that actually does that. So what I mean by that is that, like, for example, client aid, we actually have a separate bank account for that. And so we're able to write same-day checks to get people into apartments, whether it's a security deposit or paying first month's rent. So, like, on a weekly basis, I'll run checks to Jackie, and she'll sign them, and then we'll give them to the landlord, and we can house someone that way. We're the only COG doing something like that. And so the county was kind of questioning, well, should that be the COG's role? And our cities unanimously said, yes, we want you to continue. Kudos to Jackie. She's the only executive director that has to do that. So it was very appreciated by our cities, and it was good to hear. Just an update on our family system. So if you don't know, the homeless services is divided into different systems. There's individual adults, there's families, there's seniors, there's veterans. And so right now the family system is at capacity. When we're sending families to the family system, they're waiting weeks before they even get case management. So it's not like they're waiting for a shelter, they're waiting for case management. And so we're trying to come up with some contingency plans. One is that we're having some of our city and COG contracted case managers start helping the family system out. There's things that we can do before they enter the family system, like getting the documents ready, making sure families are enrolled in benefits. So those are some of the things that we'll be helping with, so to alleviate the kind of the bottleneck that we're seeing in the family system. And then lastly, the Blue Ribbon Commission issued their second report. I'm still going through it, but you'll have that update in the next meeting. And also for the next board meeting, we'll have the local solution fund programming for you all to approve that one. So thank you.
And thank you. Any questions for Ronson? All right, thank you. Next item.
Okay, I think we're done. The next item is just announcements.
Or just announcements, okay.
And then we have the executive session, but I just emailed, is Mike Jenkins here? I just emailed him to tell him we were close to the end of the meeting.
We grab some extra coffee or something. Is there any announcements before we, I guess, adjourn the regular meeting and go into closed session? Yes, please.
So, first I want to say that our, resident moved into the palace shelter this last Monday. So it's 12 units, so it's almost full out already. So full already. So that thank you, Subway Cock and Ronson, Cedric was there with the grand open. So now it's full of unhoused individuals that we eventually will transition to permanent housing. The other good news, also thanks to COG, thanks to Metro and the Measure R, Prop C, we just launched our project yesterday for the safety traffic lights and cameras and ADA compliance to 120 Hawthorne Boulevard Imperial, and it's almost $7 million. So It will be done by December. Thank you.
All right, great announcement. Others. Yes,
I just wanted, because this is probably my last meeting. And because I have a vacation plan during the time that we have our next meeting next month. But I just wanted to say I really appreciate working with each of you. And it's been many years and I really have enjoyed the time together and you guys are doing great things. I learned so many things I wouldn't have learned about if I hadn't been at the COG meeting. And so I want to tell you, I'll miss you. And hopefully we'll be back in contact again soon, either this venue or, but please, I'm going to be still active in the league and I wish you to come if you can to my installation as the division president on August 3rd at the Hotel Maya in Long Beach. And the reception starts at 6 p.m. and the dinner goes to 8:30. And our guest speaker is going to be the Sheriff of LA County, Sheriff Luna. He will be speaking. And then Steve Cooley, my former boss and resident of our city, is going to be installing me. So everyone's invited to come. And we'll be sending out a notice to everybody through the league. Thank you.
thank you for your service. All right, yes, Jeff.
Just to add to my report, which is in your packet, 4 of the bills that I've written about in the report are now 2-year bills. They were held either in policy committee or in appropriations. 2 of our Brown Act bills, AB 817 and AB 1379 were both held. The Maritsuchi bill, AB 1708 was held. That also on a week from tonight, on June 1st, our next general membership meeting will feature Al Maritsuchi. If he's able to get there, the speaker is called session for Friday, so he may have to zoom in or he may have to skip it altogether. But we've also added the California Retailers Association, who is another co-sponsor of the bill, along with Cal Cities, and to talk about that bill. The changes that we've been trying to encourage for Proposition 47 now for a few years. Other than that, I also want to mention, I did send an email to all of your city managers today on asking them to send in letters on AB 1637. That's going to require all websites, city and county websites and emails to switch to a .gov address by 2027. We are opposing that just because of the tight deadline for a lot of those smaller cities, the cost involved. So that's another one that we're working on. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor Jackson, you have an update for your city this weekend?
Nothing to report.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
I'm sorry. The elephant in the room, right? This week, Fiesta Hermosa. It's the biggest celebration in Southern California, the biggest and the best. Of course, in the best beach city in the country. Starts Saturday. Got something for everybody. Petting zoos, carnivals, art stuff for the littles and bigs. We've got beach concerts returning. We've got a beer garden with music and it'll be a lot of fun. And 3 o'clock on Monday, if you're available, we're going to pause everything for about 10-15 minutes. Assemblymember Maritsuchi will be there and we'll just pause to recognize those that have fallen and the reason that we celebrate Memorial Day. So let me know if you're coming, I can help you with a little parking. This is always a challenge, but I know a guy. If you're interested, let me know. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great weekend. If you haven't, I know a lot of you went in your younger days, but there really is something for everybody, young, old, and everybody in between. So come on out and have a good old time.
I was gonna say the Environmental Services Center is going to be there exhibiting on Saturday, so don't say hi to the team.
Terrific. Zane.
And if you want to do your Memorial Day right, you go by Hermosa, but you also come to Redondo Beach. Monday, Veterans Park at 1 p.m. We have our annual Memorial Day ceremony, which is really heartfelt, and we get some military there. I also want to thank Bronson Chu. He appeared yesterday. A group of residents speaking about homelessness. I'm proud to say that Redondo Beach has put on a strategic plan and discussion to potentially expand our pallet shelter housing. We currently have 20 pallets. We may double that to get, economies of scale savings and the like. And because frankly, the need exists and is seemingly growing despite all the attention that homelessness has received. And there's great concern in our community that it's growing, and residents frankly think that we can do more and they want to see us do more. So we're going to do more. I encourage you all to do the same.
Very good.
So speaking of celebrations, the PV Street Fair is coming up weeks after Memorial Day. So it's June 9th to 11th. It's not in our city, but it is in Palos Verdes, and we share the event with the city where it's held, which is Rolling Hills State.
Yeah, just say it.
Yeah, it's state. It's so hard to say after Rolling Hills. Sorry. And for a real treat, you might want to come by on Sunday at 2:30, where I'll be playing drums with my band.
Oh.
Yes.
Since this is open mic night, we are opening up 6 dual charge EV chargers at City Hall in Rolling Hills Estates on June 7th at 10 a.m. Bring your electric car.
Nice.
Well, and I'd say if you want something more sedate, on the Monday for Memorial Day, that, at Green Hill, up on the hill, have a wonderful, celebration starts at 10 o'clock. And, fabulous speakers, elected people, but no dancing.
No dancing.
Jennifer.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that this weekend is also LA Fleet Week in San Pedro and Wilmington.
Yes, I'm sorry, excuse me. The microphones pick up so people can't hear what Jennifer's saying. They're very sensitive. I just wanted to warn you.
Thank you. Just was mentioning that it's LA Fleet Week and we have 3 active duty naval ships in San Pedro, as well as a Coast Guard cutter. Public tours are available from 10 to 3, starting tomorrow through Monday. There's also an expo area near the USS Iowa that has displays and entertainment and food, and just wanted to mention that as well.
Fantastic. Yes.
My office is supervisor is hosting her 3rd annual Juneteenth event. I think it's gonna be June 18th. This time it's gonna be working with Ciclavia, and it's in the Westmont area. And it's gonna go through the Vermont corridor. So everyone's welcome. Pass on information.
Morale. Fantastic. Okay, and I believe our executive director wants to make a.
Well, I was just gonna say, before you go into, and Mike Jenkins is here,
Okay,
before
great.
you go into executive session, I just want to remind you that on the agenda, we are adjourning this meeting in memory of Ken Blackwood. Ken was a city councilman and mayor in Lomita, and he was a chair of the COG and a very active member in the organization.
Thank you for that. Okay, very good. Okay, it looks like we got through that. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and move to closed session. John.